So that started there.
Right.
So um, what got? I'm curious as to. I think one of the big stepping stones for a lot of people, especially in the West, who maybe didn't grow up reading Gurbani. Um, I, are you first generation
Yeah,
American?
you could say yeah, I'm first generation American. My parents came in the 90s, early like late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, and then you were the first of
Yeah,
your
and
family
I was
born
born
over
here.
here. Okay.
Yes, yes.
I'm technically first generation, but my parents came over when they were really little, so it was actually their parents who like started the move.
Oh wow.
So I'm kind of there in some ways. I'm more like a second generation
So
kid.
60s, like 60s, 70s, they got to the States?
Yeah. So my nana nani guys they got here in the 60s, and then my dada dadi got here
Wow.
in the mid 70s. Um,
Wow.
so my family's been here for a minute, but I one of the that first going and trying to connect to Gurbani and just reading it for the first time and maybe even reading it in translation, like I think that's such a major step for people. And I'm curious as to like
Yeah.
what made you want to open up Guru Sahib?
So I am at a place now where like I guess, so with certain people I share like certain amounts of like that one-on-one experience that we just discussed, because
Mm-hmm.
that depends on where they are at their journey because you don't want to turn their faith up or down based on any sort of like mystical experience you're having because it's too hard to explain. It's beyond, So if I were to just sum it up in the easiest way, I was going through a lot, so it was very painful. Maybe I wouldn't think it's so painful now, but that was real pain at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to preface that I had no Sikhi in my life. Didn't even know that term. I use Sikhism.
Right.
I said then I was a Sikh. I would think twice to say it now.
Mm.
You know. So with that in mind, just feeling some kind of pain, then becoming present in the moment. I was around a lot of death, as we all were because of COVID. So this is around that time. So
Okay.
this is, I would say, if I could even pinpoint it, because there was certain events, but I would say 2019, 2020, mostly 2020. I Somebody made a remark, just a friend, about, and I know you watched the Ten Kings podcast, something about Radha Swamis, because we were around it a lot. I grew up
Mm-hmm.
around that.
Yeah.
And nobody around me at that time had so openly like been against it because I was in a completely different world, So I was in a new work setting. So I was around some Singhs, not Amritari Singhs or Kesadari Singhs, but Kharku Punjabis, back from the pen and very proud to, go to Gurdwara all the time. So for me, like, way more sick than I was.
Mm-hmm.
But it intrigued me when he was like, he just thought it was completely a joke, So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I said, so there's people out here that think that what I was born into or around is a joke. I know him, he wouldn't just say that. I was like, I wonder why, you know? And I didn't think much of it. And the pain came, and I had like questions that were different, not the typical question you go and ask your parents. I started talking about like, what happens after this, like, is life always going to be like this? Does the pain stop? And, what about death? And blah, blah, blah. And like, I went looking for someone that had answers to those kind of questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed enough to realize quick that maybe I was just looking for a role model or something to connect to and relate to. So every dara has its papa and stuff. You're never gonna get close to them. They're so out of reach. And I had a completely different idea of what religion was until just it's really just Maharaji's hukam because what was different then, I always had Sikhism around me. What just happened is someone just happened to say, hey man, I listen to this. Sometimes it gives me peace. And I was like, okay, he was like a older dude I knew that used to go to these satsangs. And it was a link to, an Ansai Bani. And he was like, I know you don't really like these kind of things, and you're very modern, blah, and I tried to play it off too, like I didn't, care, or I didn't want to know. But little did he know, I'm like thirsty for, like, something saved me. I was going
Mm.
crazy, and he put it on. I really liked it. You know, I don't know why, nor did I care. I played it again. I played it again, and it kind of became a staple in my life in the background through all the pain. So still no reading Bonnie, still no real intrigue in it, but just I knew every day I wake up it was going to be chaos, work, life, private life. So I would just play it on side in the morning. I didn't even know what I was doing. Then things got worse, and it became really hard to sleep at night. And a couple things happened. Somebody around me who was, Kesadari Singh, just like kept saying this thing that was so out of place of him to do and say. Because even he was somebody I may or may not have had an issue with.
Mm.
And it was like, read Japji Sahib, and it was so weird. It would just come out of nowhere, in passing. He would just like, Bhai Japji Sahib pad lo. And I'm like, you are telling me this? Like, who are you to tell me? He's younger than me. I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, whatever, man. Yeah, and then once, twice, in one moment, again, his grace, he sent that message out of nowhere while I was like crying, alone. And I was like, I just started to believe that there's obviously a higher thing going on at that time as well. It just comes together little by little. I think
Mm-hmm.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I just listened to the English translation of it. Suddenly I felt like so many of my questions that I had, somebody was answering. And that too in a way that I inherently accepted, you
Mm.
know? So this is somebody, to me at that time, that's just a recording. This is someone that doesn't know me, is not personal, has nothing to gain or lose from me, and is speaking very high truths. So that part, as I guess we discussed through text, is just his blessing. Like there's levels to truth. Sometimes in some phases of life, you think certain things are the highest truth. You get wherever you get. So God bless you. I hope you realize that Vaheguru is the highest truth. So I was far from that at that point. So listening to that, my second curiosity started, was like, yo, why do we go to this like Dara thing if everything that I've already like have been asking all of you guys, and I'm referring to people, family around me,
Mm.
like it's right here. And then I started to research a little bit.
Mm.
When I found out that most of these daras, from the 1800s, trace back in some kind of way to starting their satsangs with having Prakash, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, when maybe things weren't so connected and people didn't know, they used to get sangat like that. And then, slowly that probably got stopped or pulled away. Right away, I was like, wait a second, if this too traces back to there, I was like, what is this Nam thing that they keep talking about? That became my second, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And you're probably wondering, like, mad Singhs I meet now, they just immediately, whether they realize they know a big secret or not, they just know right away it's Vaheguru, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and here and there you'll meet a Singh that'll say the good mantra, Mool mantra, and so forth. So, not knowing any of that, going to these daras, watching these initiations, like people putting in applications to get these daras, special, like things. One day, I'm asking my parents, I'm just like, because they did these things and they took these noms from these people. I was like, can you tell me what it is? No, we cannot tell you right away. So that inquisitive New Yorker, Queen's mind, I don't like it. It seems
Yeah.
very untrustworthy. I'm right
Yeah.
away skeptical
Really sus.
and very sus, and I'm just like at the age where I too can have that dialogue with my parents. Who am I to tell them? They taught me everything. That what
Mm-hmm.
I think is the highest science in a household. That the youngest, like the son is gonna tell the father, like, I think what you're doing is wrong. So that conviction and faith anyway just came from the freedom of truth that I kept feeling engaging in Gurbani. And then it's felt like somebody understood me for the first time. So what I mean by that is I used to talk a lot of nonsense because I just happened to like to read. I liked reading fiction novels, outer space, and then the topics go into like, quantum physics, this, that. So lucky enough to be in these kind of discussions of, what is truth, what is high truth, low truth, trying to understand everything and always finding this sense of pride in like to say I'm a Sikh. And I was just like, there's got to be something to this. Why do they just give their nom out for free? Which it
Mm.
felt like, And I asked my parents, I said, did you guys ever like read Gurbani? And like, it was crazy. It was like I was talking to like, they would just turn off, maybe it wasn't their time to hear it or something. I didn't understand. And I was like, why not just read
Was it
poem?
like you were hitting a wall with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe they felt some type of way, like, who is this kid to ask us? Did we read? Whether they did or didn't, then things got, escalated quick. I just one by one I started to engage one Bani, two Bani, history. I was like, I would get to something mystical and maybe not believe it so much. Then I would try to dissect it scientifically, like why did these poets record it this way? Why is this eyewitness account something so mystical, beyond reach? How could, Shahid Babadeep Singh Ji Maharaj, fight without his cease? And then I would try to break it down. And in the process of trying to find a hole in it, almost, it would just cement the process more. It would become a more and more unbelievable experience. And so I went into all this research skeptical of everyone because I was already in a painful present state. But I just continued to find one truth after the next truth. Then it started to come out in like wanting to disassociate myself with old habits. I started to become of the mindset because of, and I give props to, my girl. I met someone at the time that was very like different because of her experiences. She grew up reading the Veds and the Purans and all this, So I'm by chance. So this is a completely different part of the story. But look at me, lucky guy, wakes up in America, New York, curious about these crazy questions. Now I'm Kyunda, what is a mantra? How do you meditate? Got curious about Kundalini yoga, all this. 99% of people outside on a general basis are not going to discuss or want to talk about these things, and she kind of just knew it all already, had a
Mm.
backdrop of it, and she was even able to tell me, she's like more than, she's like, where you guys go to and stuff is a nice thing, but it's not a real religion. And then I started to really question that. I was like, yeah, you're right. Life is not just, these daras are dangerous because they pitch these like, oh, life is, just be spiritual, and they like steal your history and real directions to that place that we're all looking for.
Can you explain a little bit more? You mentioned that in the Ten Kings podcast as well. This
Yeah.
idea that they steal people's history.
So you go to these places. What's like the highest thing that any religion preaches? It's let's just, Muslims take Allah, the Jews take Yeshua, we take Vaheguru, the Hindus take Ram Ram. So if you zoom out far enough, usually you find out what your people spoke, you find out what their primary scriptures are, and you find out some adversities and history that come with them trying to, sustain their right to say it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So that's every religion in a nutshell. And when you go look and you read these stories, you know, you feel something. And that, that for 33 years, I would say, I was 31 years, I had access to all that they have. And I saw the complete difference in just to me. It was a one-on-one thing, So that's where I was very observant. I don't know your Sikhi, I don't know anyone else's, but I could see what it was doing to me.
Right.
And I was like, that's because there's blood and tears and something real in this. I started to realize, I was like, no human being just allows themselves to sit in a boiling pot of hot water. That too, when they can summon any miracle they want to, sustain or end anyone there. I was like, something is going on here, And then you keep reading it and you read it. So then I would go back home. I would be like, I said, where does he get his right to give out this magical mantra, right? Because then
Mm,
I started to realize this was only due to Bani that, and because one dude once had told me that the Muslims believe that when death comes, and the ministers of Israel are there, they ask you, who is your prophet? What is your primary prayer? And all these questions. And I would be like, if I lean towards Sikhi, I'll have an answer for all of them.
right.
And I said, but if I don't, I was like, oh my God, if I never found this, and that is how death happens, I said, I would have nothing to tell this guy that's going to come and get me,
Mm,
Because death is very real. You can look at it whatever way you want. So because it's an abstract concept, it's important that you do have somewhat of a painted picture of it. So I was like, man, these daras don't tell you about, and I'll just use our terms, your shaheeds, your sacrifices, because what they do is they say, come to us, we'll teach you how to live a happy life. You can stay your religion, but take our meditation and make it your primary, whatever it is. And then you can go to your temples and bow your heads and do your rituals, but just know that they're just rituals. They're behind, you know. You guys are the advanced. You guys are modern, you guys have, we have years
oh,
accumulated worth
that's
of science.
that's really interesting that they encourage you to still go to whatever religion that you're already practicing. Like it makes it sound more like that sounds almost parasitic, right? Like you need a host and then they're gonna jump onto something that's already existing. That's very interesting.
Well, I would blame it on the devotees that show up to these daras, right? Because these dara heads are like, oh, this dude is already here anyway.
Right.
So if he made it here to this, and him himself knowing how nonsense it is, and I say that openly, because if you're gonna give out mantras and you're gonna give out primary prayers, you have to say that you're enlightened prophet, king. You came from there. He's talking to you. He's giving you his Shabbat. Say it then. Don't hide it
Right.
from these people. Don't tell them that the Sikhs were wrong because they just give it out. If he's the great giver, of course he just gives it out. It doesn't make sense.
Mm.
Every single saint or prophet of any religion that came prior to that did it the same way, and eventually there's some sort of time that passes that requires the faith to have some sort of, let's just call it baptism, to have the full access to all the information, because obviously everyone was compromised,
Mhm.
and so they're brilliant, right? They allow you to wander. They give you a big leash. They tell you they got the magic sauce. They make it secret. And then they tell you that, you cannot really share your spiritual, mystical experiences with others because you'll lose the Shakti that comes with it. You'll come down.
Mm.
So first of all, they're giving you this, magical ascension sort of model. So it's unfortunate, because you don't forget about discrediting them by comparing and contrasting them to like the eternal fates that obviously he has allowed to continue.
Right.
You can just look into their own, fully divulge into their history, and then just like see the cracks in the
Right.
seams, so
Right.
so I'm just speaking personally on Ramaswamy's, which, at a certain point I felt like it was me alone, but it's half the internet now, so many sick struggles, folks, they know what's going on. And I have unique interactions here and there with dudes that I grew up with, that think, uh, you know, it's unfortunate. I don't want to say anything. I love them. I want them all to realize that they can just sit at home and jump Vaheguru. They don't need to put in any kind of application, and there's nothing anyone can give them or take away from them or stop them from doing it, and the rest will happen on its own. You
Right.
know, I have that much faith in my guru, and he put that in us just through his pen from so far away. Blessed are the ones that got to see them, to experience it. Like, I would think that somebody looking at maybe your transformation or whatever's going to happen to me, like, sit there and think, like, what did these dudes find? you know, what do they have? Like, how can they have so much? Like, and some get it and some don't.
I think it is it's like if Waiguru's kingdom doesn't run on scarcity, right? It's like
Yeah,
God's kingdom is always
yeah,
going to be abundant. Like the idea that it's going to be scarce in any way is pretty ridiculous. Like longer is up forever overflowing, right? um,
yeah. And maybe that's just a concept that the Singhs are blessed to just have and know and laugh about. Maybe it's just in our blood, and maybe there's millions of Singhs wandering that don't have the hukum yet to get that. And so I always think of it. I have no complaints anymore. I get it. That was my entry into having access to a Singh like you, to having access to Bani. When the time is there and maybe you really have genuine questions, there's only one being that can answer those kind of questions. And
yeah.
that's why I grew. So
But I think that scarcity thing, like even divorcing it from, I guess, the religious angle, like the politicians, the governments around the world, it's like they operate from that scarcity mindset. And that's why
yes,
it's
sir.
this competition, right? And like this is one of the places that I'd like to go with you in this conversation is
Sure.
that Sikhi has real world implications. Like you've got people who are out there who are trying to cut up the world. I don't know how much if you follow some of this stuff, but like the with the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and like
Yeah, I'm all for it, buddy. That's so I'm That's another reason we'll get to it. Like that's my only topic of interest, and I'm only quiet about it because I've made my loved ones some promises. I have to be successful in life,
yep,
secure our place, secure our homes. Because she gets it. She's like, you talk on topics that are, they're gonna get you noticed. And I said, that's Sikhi.
yeah,
You know,
it is.
that's Sikhi.
And it's like these people who are saying like we got to depopulate, make sure that there's not
Crazy,
enough to go around for everybody. Like that's the
crazy,
mindset that's going to destroy the world. And you saw it like
crazy.
like that type of philosophy wreaks havoc on the personal level, but it also, if you scale it up, it wreaks havoc on everything.
Yeah,
And I there's a little bit of controversy in our history about how much we should be speaking about our faith to other people, right? Like obviously you don't want to make a show of it, but like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there is a real place for God. Sorry, my
Yeah.
like there is a real place for educating people and telling people and sharing your experience. And that's part of why I'm interested in having this conversation with you, because I think that just being able to speak the truth about what effect Guru Sahib has had on your life, I think is very powerful and is very important. And I don't think that like I think that's something we have to own up. If we're gonna say that he's our guru and we give our head to him, it's
Yeah,
like I need to tell you my story of how he saved my life.
yeah, yeah. So it's so nice to hear someone else just say it too, because that was like one of the first. I was really loud about it in the beginning, and it takes time to realize. So, and to each their own. कहंदे ने कि कई बारी Maharaj like right away that कर्म साफ करम ना जांदे, whatever he has decided now that you've knocked and he's seen your face, so there's obviously an unlimited amount of stairs. You don't know how fast and where he's going to push you up to, but
Mm-hmm.
you've got to go through a lot of washing. And
Yes.
during that time, I didn't have any sangat really, right? So I was just quickly going through a phase of trying to tell other people that they're, excuse me, doing it wrong and this is the right way. So
Mm-hmm.
that first stopped, that took a lot of, that was more because I felt like I didn't start reading Japji Sahib enough yet to understand the concept of hukum. You are always where you're meant to be. So, have faith in that because that's the biggest gift you can give him. Nanak Vikseve Parvao, right? So I didn't know that yet. So I used to go crazy at home, like the being in this path and lifestyle, like they stole 31 years of my life. screw them, screw you, screw you.
Hmm.
It's your fault. I would have never done this, that, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I just then,
But that, I mean, like that's a really understandable response, right? Like if you feel like you've been tricked for your whole life, like I
yeah,
totally like that's really reasonable. I could understand why you would go through a phase like that.
yeah, I appreciate that, man. Maybe it's not such a big deal. Okay, so it's crazy, man. It's just everyone's just at a
That's a
different.
reasonable response. Like maybe you went a little off the handle, maybe it was a little
Yeah,
emotional, but that's like if you felt like someone had tricked you for your whole life, it's you need
I
to
did. I did.
yeah.
I had an elder grab me, who obviously at that point, then I guess whoever will ever listen to this, if you're really looking for him, Maharaji like slowly starts to open doors, right? You meet a new person that's gonna bless you with. Everyone you meet is there to give you a jewel. That jewel is knowledge, right? So
Mhm.
that's why you got to always be a listener, an observer. You can't take anything personal. So Sikhi teaches you that. That's all Guruji's credit.
Mhm.
And it's so important that you give that credit. You said it best, and you don't look for the praise. So, meeting men nowadays that aren't about themselves, not stuck up, I couldn't find that king. So I started looking. I wanted a good male figure to be around. And when you read stuff like, Maharaj used to say, Shubh kam karan to kadi nahi darna, this and that, I would be like, my God, perfect is right here, but are they real? How far were they? Can I look them up?
Mhm.
Do I know them? And one elder grabbed me. He's like, I used to ask him crazy questions because he was a big proponent of Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. So they're not Amritari Sikh, but he openly, and he's a very high ranking, like in the community, met every single president, king, you name it. He's there. He's like, nobody taught me nothing in life except one. He's like, all the knowledge I have in life is from Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. And
Mhm.
this is someone that, like, has seen it all, done it all, been to every school, has like 4 PhDs honorary, he didn't even have to do the time. They just gave it to him. And he always just says, I'm stupid. I don't know anything. I just learned from. And I was like, what is this? Like, who can even say that at that status, Because I
Yeah.
was that kind of loser. I thought, I'm special. But it's different, When you're special to Maharaji, then there's nothing like it. And you gotta earn that, And I guess we're trying, and we
Yeah,
will
yeah.
forever.
Oh
And
yeah.
someone made me start late on that journey. So, yes, that's why I was pissed.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Oh
want to play catch up, And so he told me, he's like, yo, calm down, people are going to think you're crazy. I was asking crazy questions like, naam kyun da? Naam chahiye, you
hmm.
know. They keep talking about naam, naam, naam. I said, every religion, you read, you open up a scripture, the name, the name, the name. I was like, what is this? What do you mean? Because, and mind you, can you imagine that it was just so hard for me to realize that it's just Vaheguru because I was made to believe that it's a secret. So to
Mm.
understand that that is already the biggest secret. Then when you get into history and you obviously read that Maharaji reveals secrets of the mantras as you go through the granths, then you realize that, okay, maybe it wasn't so obtainable even then at that time for every Singh, maybe that's why you had to give more of your time and blessings. And we're lucky we're born in 2023. You and I can just Google it and pull up a scripture that people probably had to travel hundreds of millions of miles, over and over to try to come do darshan once. You and I can just literally pull it up in bed right now when we turn around.
Yep.
Every single one.
We're so
And
lucky.
we're
We all
so
have
lucky.
access to Guru Sahib all the time. Like that's astounding. I can't I don't know if the Panth has um really worked through these ramifications, but like the notion that every um Singh and Gore is gonna have that they have Guru Sahib with them all that like if you have one of these with you, you're gonna have Guru Sahib. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously he's always there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically being able to read Guru Granth Sahib at any time,
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
It is 100%. And the sooner you yourself as a Singh and a fellow Singhs, whoever's listening, teach someone else to give that respect to Gurbani, like it'll be even more special to them, you know? So
Hmm.
like that's a mystical experience. How do you explain that? You know, the more you love and respect it, the more it does for you. So it was the perfect religion, philosophy, science, you know, I couldn't get enough of it. It really took a toll, you know. I lost my job, quote unquote, you know. I left. I didn't want to talk to friends. I had issues at home. Everybody's like changing, you know, and you know that part. So that part just happens. And it's the washing of like the previous lives, you know.
Hmm. I
And
find it very interesting that Guru Sahib kind of revealed himself to you during this time of chaos in your life.
I don't really tell anyone all of it, you know, because it's like somebody could one day just hear that and say, yo, who is this guy, you know,
Right, right.
to say that. So, like, I learned too with time, you know, you don't just talk about everything with everyone
Oh, of
because
course not.
sometimes you can tell someone a truth they're not ready to hear. My girl taught me this. So, props to her. She's like, you know, you're going around saying things that maybe someone doesn't, you know, she says it like this, maybe they're still just here to enjoy Kali Yuga. And she's like, once you put it in their head, she's like, and if they don't change, but they heard that truth and they heard it from you, she's like, you're going to hold them liable. You're going to make their life harder. And I laugh, you know, because I'm like, well, whatever, you know, if that's going to bring them closer and start waking them up then and there. But you see how it's like, that's him also encouraging me do the fine dance.
Hmm.
And so, you know, like wifey knows some, obviously the most specific things that happened. I have you know, an nostalgia that I've leaned on other things. Obviously, as we talk more, you know, I become more open to you. So I also really was like emphatic about that point too. Like, why me? You know,
Mm,
how it was very like again one on one, and it was like I always loved those national treasures, treasure hunt movies. You know, so every kid's got like their background dream going. You know, they're gonna be this, that, whatever. Like I really liked that ancient Egypt searching for gems and jewels thing. So it really felt like I had arrived in some stage and I had opened, you know, like some secret crest and was reading something that maybe not everyone's going to be allowed to, you know?
right.
And then, you know, you see and feel some things that are beyond. I just grew up kind of for the last 10 years of my life. I would say from like 22 to 32, I really was into like fitness and wanting to be a bodybuilder, this and that. And so who cares about that? But one thing that came out of it was a detachment to food, you know, or learning to detach from it. So getting into Simran and Bani, I got very lucky. I was like body aware. I was, you know, very cognizant of what I eat, don't eat. I could fast. I could do breathing practices. So I went in full steam. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, if I'm reading this, what's the point if I don't treat it like I'm not, you know, I'm following instructions to find some kind of treasure. And I realized that it was telling you that, you know, listen here, you'll make it to heaven and meet God. You know, if I'm going to just sum it up in the most simplest of ways. And I was like, it takes a lot of guts to say that or imply that with such love and grace. I was like, there's got to be something here. And what proved it to me is all the shahidis, you
Mm,
know, so that sealed the deal. So you can talk about it, but can you be about it?
right.
And there's no dance higher than, you know, the dance of Shahidi. So that's why it's so important. I'm sure you heard on Ten Kings, they're like, you know, do they ever bring up Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj inside, you know, their deras? I said, no, it's funny you say that because you might hear Guru Nanak's name because Guru Nanak Dev Ji Maharaj always gets associated with, you know, full loving grace, you know.
Right.
You read enough, you know, they had Shastra on them all the time too. And they were ready to end you if they wanted to as well. But that's in our with Ten Kings.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Something happened when we were recording with Ten Kings, and it turned off too at like a specific point. I was like, "Oh, the Matrix is listening." They
This
don't
is
want
not
it.
the Matrix. This was me being a cheapskate.
No, man, good. Save your money everywhere. You know, that's something Maharaj taught me also. So I didn't know any of that before. So, yeah, so then I guess I really wanted to. I just felt like I was also lucky that I was putting it together piece by piece, and I would
Mm-hmm.
have these thoughts. I was like, okay, this connects because of this. And the first phenomenon that happens when you study history, and this doesn't even have to do with Sikhi, anybody listening, is your your concept of time space expands. So, you know, sometimes when I talk to people, and this is the easiest way to explain it, to some people, the 1900s is a really long time ago. To some people, the 1800s is a really long time ago. I would openly say to most really devout Singhs, life starts when Baba Nanak started, right? So we always, it's very easy for us to go right back to there. And before that, for some people that are even further into history, you know, it's zero, it's 5,000 BC, it's 10,000. So Sikhi gives you access to that because the knowledge that we're getting, being that we're also interacting with the Veds, we mentioned the Purans, the Kitabs, Semitics. If you're inquisitive and you're Googling it, you end up in these time zones that you don't have access to in modern spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose all the amazingness that comes with it. So time space just started to expand. And, you know, if it expands enough, it loops in on itself. And then you start to realize the other crazy things, you know, it's just one unit. Time is one unit.
That
So
that
he's watching it all happen right now, then and now.
your comment about how new modern spirituality shrinks that frame. I like a lot of the new age stuff, right? New age people that they'll talk a lot about like be here now, and I think that there is
Yeah.
something really important to being able to be fully in the present moment. But there's
Yeah.
like such a focus on this singular life
Yeah.
that you don't like you're part of a stream. Like if you're
Yeah.
not aware of history, like how are you going to be able to pass on a tradition? And a tradition is like it's an arc for people to live in throughout time because history is right. Sansar is a horrible ocean, like
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
giant
Yes.
storm, and we
Yeah.
have to. Guru Sahib has given us a boat. He's given us a ship to travel on. And that's
Yeah.
not just, yes, it's our individual lives. We travel on Nam, but like the tradition and the history is how families travel through time. And I
Yeah.
see so many people these days where they're like cutting themselves off from tradition. And then, then everyone's got their reasons, but I also see like a consequence of that being cutting themselves off from procreating. Like so many people don't want to have children, or they want to have dog and like cat children, and it's like, I'm sorry, those are not your children. And it's not
Yeah.
to make a
Yeah.
judgment about people, but like,
Yeah. Yeah.
are you going to keep traveling through history?
Yeah.
Because if you don't have any sense of how long life is, and it's just your own life, then
Yeah.
it's too small. You can't sustain civilizations like that.
The, I want to build on your point about the boat, you know, because the boat comes up a lot, right? And so many fates and so many sakya and so many popping to head that I would love to share and we could both laugh. But I just to be on that topic of how modern spirituality bundles it up, I feel like what modern spirituality does is kind of teach you that it's you and your boat, and you got to just stay focused and row your boat and get to that point, which is to realize the self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it tells you you got to put in all the effort and throw off all your baggage and just do what makes you happy. And you can only get there by yourself, and everything else is going to weigh you down. Where Gurbani's boat literally tells you that there's endless space and it's not going to move whether you row it or not. It's only going to move if you do seva, japanam, and you get people on it. And
Mm-hmm.
every time you add someone to it, it'll go faster and you'll get to that place faster. and you'll be happier. And it's a completely different boat, you know. You don't need to do it alone. You can't do it
Mhm.
alone. First of
You
all,
can't.
access to all this is given by the adas of a satsangat. So
Mhm.
something that by analogy made me realize reading his work is like, there's the Guru Sahib Satsangat, of course, and then there's also Vaiguruji Satsangat roaming freely, right? Those free
Mm.
souls that are connected to him through the nam that he's given them, that they jump, or their guru, whatever their experience is. You can run into amazing people all day long, and you won't even know if that one person says a prayer or blessing for you, you know? He might get that faster than anyone else you know. So you need good sangat. You need to do seva, you know. There is a science to jumping nam. um you do need godmen around you, and you need to go find out yourself what made them so faithful, what did they say, you know. And if you can't, if you're too scared to get close to them, then, you know, go to the ones that were closest to them. And then if not them, you know, if not the court poets, let's just say, you know, or by Mardanaji, and you can't, you know, then just follow it back. Just see where everybody gets their failure. What are they glued to? You know, why is this still going on? Don't you have big questions? Like, life is not just you for your 80 years that you're going to be here. Just every other person out there is going to go into that same dust cloud that you are. So, you know, why are these names still here?
Mhm.
You know, and the I guess the most important topic that I think you and I can openly attest to is, then, you know, God men have the right to speak on abstract topics. So they're giving definitions to things that most spiritual people like to say, like, oh, like, well, we don't know that, you know, like what happens at death, you know. So if you don't have that picture painted in your heads of how the Jimdus come and they hit you over the head and how they're gonna beat you until you go, and you know, so these are stories. This I put the image of death together as I engaged Gurbani, Sakya, Singh's, Katha, and you know, so it's like your guru paints a picture for you, so
Mm.
you can prepare for that. There's no room, you know, if you go talk to a devout Muslim, they'll tell you, you know, what they think. No, sorry, I'll tell what they know will happen in death, right? So if the consciousness is what governs us in death, whether you believe in God or not, you should understand that your consciousness is going to populate a definition of death, the only one it knows. So you better make sure it's beautiful. You know, you better make sure you know how to defeat it, win it, experience it, you know. So I think some people get closer to that through mystical experiences, sometimes near death experiences, you know, crazy hardships, because pain makes you so present.
Mhm.
Um, some people chase the drug route, you know, but unfortunately, you know, if they're not jumping numb, or their mind isn't in a stable place, it can totally send you off the rockers, right? Because I guess you and I could agree that maybe drugs can open your dasam dwar, and if you don't know how to close it, or you don't have a guru protecting you or someone around you, it could be complete chaos for you. And sometimes I meet people where I'm just like, man, this person is really intelligent. They know a lot, but they're a little bit off. You know,
Mhm.
all they need is a little bit of Bonnie in their life, and they'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
They know everything already. You know, they're already in that skeptical phase of questioning everything and experiencing reality as like a. The guru makes everything beautiful. The pain.
So
Sorry
maybe
about the crazy tangents.
no,
So
no, no, it's all good.
you
It's
take
all good.
over whenever you want. I got whatever.
um, what you were just talking about with questioning everything, it made me a little. What was your experience like in school? Like growing up, like
That's so funny.
was there a
Um,
lot of like do this? Like I'm just
yeah.
I'm curious if you don't mind.
I My experience in school was always everybody telling me, like, you know, you got so much potential,
Mm.
and you know, you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that. Maybe that got to me a little bit. I had no trouble at all making friends, being social. You know, I never was one to take anything too serious. Whether I got a zero or I got 100, you know, it was what it was.
Hmm.
Proud to show off the zero, failing grade. Proud to show off the 100. very carefree. Oh, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੀ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ, very
Mhm.
nonchalant. Then eventually you get a little older, you want to make some money, you think, life is going to be about cars and this and that. So I think every guy has something that makes them want to pursue some kind of financial freedom. For me, it was like cars, it was typical dude, I wanted this car, that car. So made me very unfocused throughout school. No trouble learning. If it was a class that I enjoyed,
Yeah.
you know, I got 100. I got an A. I remember this. If it was something I didn't care about, if it was like a history class or whatever, I flunked across the board because either I didn't show up, I didn't pay attention, I had excuses. So there was no like discipline effort in me.
Mm.
I tried to once to run off to like, I was at least aware of that. I would openly say, I need some discipline. If I think back now, I wish some Singh grabbed me at the time. It was like, you just need to,
Well,
fix
that's
your
what
Sikhi,
that was one of the things that was starting to come to mind is even earlier in the
Yeah.
conversation, you had mentioned this desire for a male role model,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this kind of this person who's gonna, and I think that that's something, especially in America currently, where it's like,
Captain America, baby. That's what they need. We're dying for Captain America.
well, there's a lack of being able to look, especially in the public sphere. There's a lack of being able to point to a man and say, I want to be like him when I grow up.
It's all I used to talk about, Sing. I stopped
Mm.
talking about it now because we got all the dudes that we can talk about, forever. But
Yeah.
I, for a long time, I would try to apply for a job, and I would start talking about this stuff because I was so distressed.
Huh.
Employers wouldn't even want me. They would just be like, you sound fed up with life. And I'm like, I am. Like, I was like, I am this way because they told me it would be okay to be this way, to
Mhm.
be this reckless individual, make these stupid mistakes and waste this time, party, drinks, you know,
That
smoke,
is what
blah, blah, blah.
that's what our culture teaches us, our American culture, right?
It's never ending. It's never
No.
ending. What can you not turn on? I got pulled over. I'll happily share this. It took me twice to get into trouble with the law to realize that alcohol isn't correct. It took me one engagement with Bonnie and knowing the value of making a promise when you mutate, because that started then.
Mm.
I I couldn't give it up for 20 whatever years, dude. Got not arrested once, twice. So you can't even say I didn't get in trouble and I didn't know the extent of the law. One time I had fear of Guru Sahib. One time I said it in my head, Galtina, main chhad de nahi saal waste, tada. Never touched it again. I still remember that date to this moment. It was
Wow.
December 14th, 2021. I said, I'm not going to do it, because Christmas was coming, New Year's. And I said, after this, just kill it for me. When I saw that magic happen, I knew, you know, it literally, it wasn't hard. It was that easy leaving it to him, knowing that I had no chance. I couldn't do it because
Yeah.
it was a part of my life. I
Right. Right.
I had to go out Friday. That's where you got business,
Yep.
and that's how you relax, and that's how you calm down. And it's I wish I could grab every kid and stop them now.
Yeah. I mean, so I never was lucky enough, Guru Sahib's Kirpa, like I never actually ran into the law, um
God bless, dude. You tried to save me so many times.
but like the alcohol, it was a real struggle for a long time.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I remember being a kid and being like, I'm never gonna drink. And then,
yeah,
the first time I got drunk, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I love being drunk.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then but I knew I was gonna have to give it up at some point because I knew if I didn't, it was gonna take me, right?
So why did you know? Okay, so I'd like to know, because you're gonna laugh when I tell you, but why did you know that you had to eventually give it up? And at what age did you just say, okay, this is not okay for me? Was it a problem, or what was your thought process?
I knew I would have to give it up eventually because when I was about 10 years old, my thaya died and
Okay,
he was a drinker. Um,
okay,
and then there was also there's other alcoholism in the family, and like I see like that future, that destiny. I'm like, well, I don't want to die in my 40s, and I don't want to put my family through what some of the other people in my life have put their family through. And so
Yeah.
I knew that, but even that picture wasn't like this picture of kind of a hell on earth wasn't enough to get me to stop. Um,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until like I started drinking when I was about 18, and then
Mhm.
I stopped. It's been about a year now. Um, and so when I was about 26, I'm 27 now. And it was going into Sikhi where it just like it wasn't even like that I was trying to stop anymore. It just the more I walked into Sikhi and the more I
Yeah.
was connecting to it just like was it lost its appeal.
Yeah.
And I remember at a certain point, I was some of the things that you feel or experience when your Simran is happening and Guru's Kirpa is upon you, like some of that stuff was happening, and then I went and I had a like even at this point I would still have a drink here or there,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was like
Totally different.
the effect
It
of the
didn't matter.
alcohol was different.
Well, no, it was just it became a substance.
Yeah, it felt
The
different.
experience went away.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
experience
yeah.
goes away.
It
Yeah,
was so bizarre.
yeah. It's the greatest. It's the greatest gift you could have possibly. And God bless, because two things are not talking about the same exact gift. Like the whole point is to
Absolutely.
defeat it to the point where it can be around you, thrown at you.
Right.
Somebody around you can have it. You can throw it at me, pour it in my mouth. You can make me drunk. I still wouldn't be that. I would
Right.
get nothing from it.
It wouldn't be that because like in the past it was like
Who you
drink.
are doing it.
Yeah, it
That's
was,
what it used to be
and it
for
was
me.
like you would drink to like get rid of yourself.
Yeah,
And now it's like maybe that's like if it's a good day, I've given myself away to Guru Sahib, and like that's a totally
yeah,
different thing,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah, yeah. Now you're playing for infinity,
right,
So
right.
either you've accepted that, or you realized it, or you know it's coming, it's pending, it's around you. But so to just the reason I ask you that, what it took for you to decide in that moment, like why I got to give this up. So for you as family, then you saw it, you saw the
Mhm.
effects, became personal, and then you just
Yeah,
he God weaned you off of it.
yeah.
That's great, man. And that's so the reason I asked was because for me, the initial whole like, that I got to give it up, or always why it was in my head that I have to give it up, had nothing to do with any of, Sikhi or this or that. It
Mm.
initially came from that it's one of the vows that the Radhaswamis make their initiates take, right? So
Um,
growing up around them, just constantly hearing, Jinne Namdan Lana, or they can't drink for a year prior to it, or Radhaswamis just don't drink in general. They have good ideals that get passed around that are enough to keep a person's, I would like to just make it simple, like karmic burden low.
yeah,
Okay,
yep.
I am not a proponent of being a vegetarian anymore. I was a vegetarian for them for 31 years. I ate
Mhm.
chicken for my guru because I know. So you're gonna laugh, for me it was a complete reverse, right? This might send ripples down some Singh's stream, but if you're already engaging with the history and reading about Mahaprasad and the Nag Singhs, and it's food is food. It doesn't
Right.
matter. You're gonna kill something walking out here or not.
Yep.
All that matters is your prayer prior to it, during it. Ki japre, or are you taking that dust with you to Sachkhand, or are you just gonna stay here the whole time and be a waste of life? So this blessing of detaching from food came when this very respectable man in my life of a different faith sits me down, and he knew because he's already on his path with Christ. Okay, he's having a
Mm.
one-on-one. God bless him. And Kaivari Sadi, I found much comfort in discussing things with him, because when it's just love for God, the language could be different, but it's the same destination. So you hover around each other. He puts you together, and he eats meat, and he would ask me silly questions. He's like, you know, one God, one heaven. So he's like, what, you think I'm not going to go to heaven with you? And I would laugh because I was like, you know, this is the realest dude I know. If I know anyone that I would say is going to go. And I was like, you know what? I would say, I said this to him before I knew anything about our Maryada. I would be like, no, because he's only going to judge you by the truths you've claimed to have accepted and have been taught. So if in your code of conduct, it's okay. I said, he's obviously watching you, giving you that code of conduct.
Mm.
And as long as you don't participate in any kind of gluttony, which you can do with, you know, cheese and burfia and anything vegetarian,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you're going to be okay. And then he pointed out, you know, like other people in my life that I know and love. So then it didn't take me long when I got to like, let me also add to that. I used to think I was special or more special because I was vegetarian for 30 something years. So that's, I
That
noticed to that,
ego.
you know, and I was like, damn, what a story I have going in my head,
Mm-hmm.
that the way I'm going to have to defeat this is because I had now read enough Sakis, you know, that Nahang Singhs eat. I had started to eat eggs anyway, you know, and people around me would just be like, you know, you're eating the feathers anyway, the egg whites, you know, so why not the yolk? So these comments, you know, and so this is not for anyone listening to go out and freaking have a Big Mac, you know, we don't eat beef, but it was just enough for me to realize that, yo, this can't be a part of the story. And I said, I cannot spend my whole life stuck in a discussion of the, you know, karma is just with the mouth. I said,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, just with the fitness background, I said, who cares? Life is always, all your lives and all your experiences in life are more crispy on a fasted stomach. So if you've never fasted, maybe you won't agree, to anyone listening. If you do, you know, things don't fast, but I'm talking about just for workout purposes, you know,
Right.
how long can you go without eating, you know, or are you always crying for food and whatever it is? So I just had chicken one day and it was crazy, you know, like people started freaking out around me, you know, who had known me since I grew up, and they were
Yeah.
like, what? Like, he ate it himself, but his world exploded, you know. He really thought like something had happened, the world is end. And I was like, yo, man, I said, I'm sorry if I ever made you feel like, you know, that I'm spiritual and you're not. I
Mm-hmm.
said, this is wrong. I said, who cares? Just make sure. And this is when I started to say stuff like, you know, what is chatka? What is halal? You know, and then you look. So if you're already at that topic where you are that technical and nitty gritty, you know, and you know where I'm going with this, then you start looking for the codes of conduct, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then Maharaj gives it to you, and then you chase the Khalsa Swaroop, you know, you have to earn it. A lot of things blossom into their full flower and experience so much probably joy and power from having their case and Dara. And I know they just want all their Singh brothers and sisters to do it. They pound it in, you know, like grow your case, grow your case. But I firmly believe that's only his hukum, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You can help put that belief in someone. You know, how could I explain to someone how much I think about it or I want to do it, how difficult it is, you know, the circumstances changing and people around you have to accept your changes, you know. Um, it's not so easy to just, it is really easy to just tell someone, screw you, I'm going to do what I want
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to just go for it. But, you know, I want to win with a face of love. I want to make sure that nobody can, I don't ever want anyone to point to me and say, that's a selfish thing. He just did this because, you know, oh, he's a man, he wanted to be macho. You know, I don't want none of that. You know, this is something completely different. So that's why I laughed when I saw you, because for a few days I wasn't talking about, but you know, so we have Gurdwara right here, you know,
Mm-hmm.
bless Shaheed Dana Gurdwara. It's Baba Deep Singh Ji's Ishtan. So if you ever come to New York, Hicksville, it's definitely one of the places that Singhs are probably going to tell you to come to. So blessed to have very good sangat there. And I told Babaji, Baba, you have to sit with us, Singh, and we're going to be talking on Maharaj. And I want to wear the star now. You know, I want to be respectful, and it didn't work out. That's why I told you. You know, I wanted to shower, run
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
tie, and so it's only recent, you know, where I just made that decision. It became a back and forth, you know. I would get like a little buzz, I would shape it up, and then I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna let the size grow. And but you know already because you went through it. So
I did. And I'll tell, like, there was a period where so when I started going to the Gurdwara regularly, which is when things started, um when Maharaj started, like, things were just happening faster then. Um and it was during COVID and during the lockdown portion, and all the barbershops were closed, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so I started growing my hair just because I wasn't able to go to the barbershop. I wouldn't say I was growing it, I just wasn't getting it cut. And
yeah.
then
Blessed man, you did it at the perfect time.
oh, I well, so then
Mm.
I started going to the Gurdwara, and I really good sangat, and there's a babadi over there. He helps me out. He's been kind of my mentor and stuff, right? And he started tying the dastar on me and helping me out. And I was leaning into it for a little bit, but I would only wear the dastar on when I would go to Gurdwara on Sunday, and then
Yeah, I'm about
um
to get to that phase. I think I'm right there.
and then I started to feel this, like, something wasn't right about the whole thing.
Ah,
And it,
okay.
like,
Yeah,
like, it started eating at me, and like I started pulling
yeah,
my
yeah.
hair. Like, I was just like driving in the car,
I get it.
pulling hairs out of my
Yeah,
head. And
yeah. I do it all day. I sit here and I just play with my back.
yeah, and then I it's like um and then
Is that Maharaji bringing our attention to hair? Isn't maybe that's just the way he does it, right? He
I
just
don't know, but
mixed, you know?
I started, like, I started to feel a bit like a fraud. And then I also
Yeah.
started to feel like I'm only doing this because the Sangat was really nice about it, right? Because everyone's like, oh, okay, sinna sona lagdaya and all this stuff, right? And it's like, and I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want to do this to be a conformist at
Yeah.
this new community that I'm participating in. And then I had
Yeah.
this dream,
Oh,
and
nice, man. Thanks for sharing. If you're gonna take it to it. Yeah.
this crazy dream where like, my best friend, this an ex-girlfriend, they were telling me to keep my gaze, but they
Nice,
were all
man.
distorted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this Nahang, he
Oh wow.
spoke to me, but he didn't have a dari.
Yeah.
And he told me, "Put hale case the fikr nahi kar, naam pehla lab lo."
Wow.
And then I went and cut my hair the next day.
That's crazy.
And
But you got it from the highest, so
yeah,
it's
I
okay.
was like, it was the craziest thing. And I was like, I'm not supposed to do this yet. And
Yeah.
um, then it's been about 6 7 months now, and like now it's totally different than the first time.
That's
And
crazy, man. I love it, man. Thanks for sharing.
yeah, yeah, of course. Oh man,
And
this
that
is
was your first time growing out Dara too?
there was a period in college where I kind of let my hair and beard go, but that was more of a
Yeah.
hippie thing than it was a Sikhi
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had a huge beard at one point with like a fade, you know. That was more
Yeah,
of a style thing. It happened in New York for a while. All dudes were
right,
growing out
right.
their beards and I, knew nothing about it. I used to get so much grief then. People used to actually say then, like, oh, and it's crazy, right? People used to say like, "Oh, did Wali Rakhla," you know? It meant
Hmm.
nothing to me. I would be like, "You're crazy," you know? Like, I'm never gonna, we're Swami, we're spiritual, you know. We don't need to do that.
Right,
That's
right,
not a part of art, you know. But can't say I wasn't always drawn to that image and ideal, you
right,
know.
right.
And but yeah, continue, finish, man. So
That was pretty much it. And then the last 7 months or so, it's like it's been a different. Like, there was a time where I tried to wear the star in, like, public and stuff, and like
yeah,
it sounds really bad, but I hated it.
yeah.
I was like, this
You
is
just
this
felt like the whole world was looking at you.
that, but also just like it was. It felt like a lie. It's like I don't love Guru Sahib as much as, like, it looks like I
Yeah,
do right now.
yeah. Wow. No, then you already have the highest form of love. It's cool, man. It's needed. Like I don't think enough exactly how you feel is how I'm feeling, or how you felt, like at a certain point, I realized, like, I can't keep talking on this topic if I'm not true to, what I gotta be, because everything I say is implying that there's no pen higher than my king's and your king. Then there's hookums, but just that's why it's so important to go in through the history. And you're gonna laugh, but the ones that make me feel most comfortable about it, that it's not there yet, are the Nahang Singhs.
Mm,
The the full Nitnami. Whoever's listening, if you're blessed to be around a Nitnami Singh, like, just listen to them, and a real Nitnami Singh. Just don't worry about anybody else. Like you said, 9 out of 10 times, like you were even blessed in your dreams. Darshan Mirge, he'll Maharaj is gonna give it when he gives it. And there's nothing you're gonna, do to stop it. And um, I guess the easiest way to look at it is, I guess you have to put in a certain amount of time engaging Gurbani, and once that meter's full, because it's obviously not a small thing. So
mm.
that's something a lot of people tell me, and I guess the thirstier you are for it and the more you want it, the further he puts it away, you know? So
Well,
you have to fight.
there was a certain point where it was like, while I was keeping my hair, my mind was telling me like, and it's this constant battle with the mind, but like
Yeah,
there was all of these attacks from the mind about like how you shouldn't be doing this yet, you shouldn't be doing this yet, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
after I cut it, and it was cool for a few months, and then at a certain point, the mind started attacking me from the other way, and it was um, like then that itch started coming, and I would like try to put it away. It was like,
yeah,
now it's time to start growing your hair. I was like, no, 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 like I just went through this. Leave me alone. Like I'm not going to.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a very bizarre journey.
It's the, I guess it's the part of it that I guess makes Sikhi so unique and special too, So if one day you and I are blessed enough to sit with very devout Christians, Muslims, and all other faiths, walks of the world, everybody's got their bana, everybody's got that name written on their head, that set of directions that they're going to pick to find his door. And with that in mind, that was a part of the searching through Sikhi too. I was just looking for that male figure. So going back to our primary topic, looking for this, indomitable figure without holes. I started to pierce the holes of the men around me, you
Mm,
know? So realizing that the only humble way to do that, to not, pierce, is almost like saying, like judging someone's, walk in life, is you have to have that same judgment upon yourself, so you can hold someone accountable to something so long as you're true to it. So
mm,
maybe you can speak on it or not. So sometimes the truth that you accept can be really new to you, but if you just know in your heart it's game on, that you've picked this truth and it's this truth to the end, it can cause some kind of, vigor. And so somebody around you might just be like, yo, who are you, to say this? You've been doing this 30 years, Don't tell me not to have a drink. You're going to have a drink in a year, They keep to beating, so you got to go through that phase.
yeah, yeah.
And I started to become introverted. And obviously, the story is so big. So I would love to do the podcast with you 100 times, so we could go through every piece of it. I
Yeah,
tell every single person that I talk to a different part of the story, and then later I'm like, oh man, I forgot to tell him this and that, but it's okay. So looking for that male, I started to pierce through the males around me,
hmm
and I say that to whoever's listening, as humbly as I could, and quickly decided that if there was no one around me, that now look, I have the greatest father in the world, so I'm really lucky. So I'm not saying that I didn't have good men around me. I had a very easy, coddled, blessed life. I got the illest dad. My mom is very lucky. She has, the greatest husband. They have a great relationship. I come from a nuclear family. Besides the Dara thing, I got no complaints, and
Mm.
that's okay. Because anyway, the only things that they enforced on us or made sure that we did or didn't do was like meet nikah, don't drink, whatever I did anyway, Um, you know, they kept emphasizing that one day when you get older, you have to do Simran for a certain amount of time a day. They believe, you got to meditate. So, meditation was emphasized. Good company. They do seva too, but they do seva of their own sangat, whatever you want to call it. They're still doing seva. Um, so it was just that I had questions. And the questions were crazy questions. What is death? What is this? What is that? And either my dad didn't feel comfortable talking about it, didn't want to tell me. So that's the only reason that I even went above, my dad, because most men arrive at their father, So anyone listening, I don't want them to think, why not his dad? Dad is jacked. My dad is 60 and can still outrun me in a mile and outlift me any day. So all props to him. So I started looking around society and I was like, man, every dude, I'm in New York. So I run into all different types of people all day. I was in the real estate business, so I was around very affluent people,
Yeah.
So I got to see the cream de la creme of success. I got to sit with dudes and I became very inquisitive. My question was really just about what is like happiness, what is peace, right? So I started to make my own analyzations, and that dude that I told you earlier, I don't want to use the word dude, that gentleman, that elderly fellow that I told you, said that Guru Sahib was the only person that he learned anything
Mm.
from, intrigued me enough because of his status being above even all the millionaires that it got me past the money schematic in my head, right? So
Yeah.
money was out the door. I didn't think money was a measurement of success because we've seen it come and go in our life. I've seen other people have it come and go. I know what it's like to have, I know what it's like to have nothing. We've been through so much as a family and personally. So I was like, then what is it? How's this dude so happy? Is it the success? Is it his guru? Like, am I gonna really look into these? So I started looking into the Ramaswamy gurus. I was not impressed, you know. Maybe because I couldn't reach them. Maybe their literature didn't have the sakyan that they needed to intrigue me. That was
Mm.
Maharaj's hand. I didn't read anything that I glued onto enough that I just segued into their literature or whatnot. Something kept pulling me back here and there to like a Sakya or two about a Singh. And I would be like, yo, man, I was like, our stories are crazy. I was like, I can go read anything and then come back to this and just be like on top of the world, prideful. And I don't even know any of this because I didn't grow up, I can tell you the exact moment in one sense. It was COVID.
Mm.
We were, by the way, is there a time limit? It's 9:30. Let me know if whenever you got to go. I don't have to
There's
go
not a
anywhere.
time limit, but the Zoom thing is about to cut
Yeah,
off again. So
that's fine. So send me another link.
yeah, I'll send you another link real quick, and then we'll start
Yeah.
with the Saki, the moment. Okay, so the Saki.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So, and I apologize to you and everyone listening because the timelines keep jumping, but piecing together the story. So one day it was during COVID and, we're all playing COD. And I would say well before any inquisitiveness into Sikhi, but um, yeah, this is probably, yeah. So this is before any of all of that. Yeah. So this is right before you could see, maybe you'll get a good kick out of this, but all of us are getting into the group chat. It's a bunch of things, and they're all shooting out jakaris and Khalsafates, and everybody does one. I think there was six of us. We were about to run. Do you ever play COD? Did you play?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So you already know how those lobbies are. So and this is my first time getting into video games. I find it so unique. I found brothers. It's
Hmm.
COVID, so it's already like an emphatic experience. I was probably still drinking at that time, this and that. So one of the guys is like, "Yo, Harnoor, tu kha sakte nahi kya wapas?" And I'm like, and he's like, "Why are you not saying it?" I was like, "I don't know how to." And he roasted. He lit me up, the most loving way. He's like, "What the fuck does that mean, Harnoor?" I was like, "Yo, man," I said, "Also, I mean, I said, I don't even." He's like, "Yo," and this is the greatest thing he ever. He's like, "Repeat after me, okay?" And I was like, literally, like, and I'm a man. He's on a phone headset, right? And I know how he looks. I know
Hmm.
my size. I was big into the gym. I'm like, this little dude is telling me, repeat after me, and just that's his grace and power. Because you know who that was. He's
Hmm.
like, repeat after me, and I just abided. I like listened to the command, and he said, "Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa," and I'm like scared, and so whatever. I get it out. We're playing the game, and I start Googling it. In the first Google of what is, why Guruji ka couldn't even spell it, don't
Hmm.
even know what I'm writing. I found Sikhi Wiki, you
Hmm.
know? So, and now fast forward in this pursuit to looking for men and male to relate to and what they get to, went through all the men in my life, asked all the highest questions I could to Ramaswamis, whoever was the highest ranking uncles. Now I'm talking about society. Ask my parents, ask my mom, dad, uncles, whoever I thought, knew everything, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਇਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਕਰਨਾ
Hmm.
ਇਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ ਗਿਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕੋ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਸੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ I told you that always says Guru Sahib taught him everything, and that's when I sat down in front of it. I was like, ਮੈਨੂੰ ਨਾਮ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਕੀ ਹੁੰਦਾ, everybody sucks, the world sucks, I hate politics, I hate people, and he was just like, you already got it. And I was like, what does that mean? What is he saying? Is this like some loopy mystical experience? Like, and he didn't even realize, I didn't even realize then that he's just telling me, like, yo, you're obviously like leaning on Sikhi, just Vaheguru Japana. He didn't realize why I was even asking this whole time, that I thought it was a secret, you know,
Hmm.
because this mindset. So what I would do then is I quickly fast forwarded through all celebrities and high ranking politicians and people, whoever people relate to, YouTubers, fitness, because there was a dude sitting in front of me that had met them all, seen them all, been around them all, and was completely and unfazed, and was literally like he probably shuts down any dude that enters into his room, because that's his nature, because he can and he's been there. But the second it's about, Maharaj, whether they have, it I see them, tone it down. So I was like, what is this respect, for um Guru Gobind Singh Ji? They were so long ago. Were they even real? Is it like fake? Like, I think everything was fake. That Christianity didn't happen, but Prophet Muhammad didn't happen. Nobody happened. We
Hmm.
got it all about something, and that's it. I started to read. I was like, all right. I said, if success is if success is measured by one's the weight of their name. I started to say that things a lot in real estate, like, oh, everyone's favorite word. Because we used to have these trainings, right? And we'd always try to make it creative. And I used to have agents underneath me, and we would talk about, like, introducing yourself to people. And I'd be like, yo, everyone's favorite word in this world, whether they like it or not, because everybody's got this new science. They want to be everything else but their name. I'd be like, is their name? It gets their attention, get people's name. I would think about that at night. I was like, nah, name is the same thing. What could it be? Like, is that why the Ramaswamis talk about it? Who teaches this and what is it? And I said, let me just look into those whose names we all still take and talk about. I was like, the Godmen, right? I was like, all right, let me just see. I'm 33. I'm old enough, 31. Said, what are all these scriptures and these people's, beliefs about? Why are they so adamant? Why are they not Radha Why didn't they end up at the dairy? Why is this person still wearing a turban and growing out a beard? This is a modern world. And I would jump around. I would pick a Christian scripture. I would read, interact, because I grew up around so many Christians. So knew it all. As a Radha dude, you disregard religion. You say dumb things like, "Oh yeah, I'll convert. I can be anything because God is one." And so they take that part out. That's very dangerous. Maybe you did. I didn't have any type of like Sikhi baptism or anything at a young age. None of that.
Yeah.
So later on in your faith, you realize the value of that. And that's completely the mystical side of it. ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੰਮ ਸਾਫ਼ ਕਰਨੇ ਹੋਣ, blessings ਲੈਣੀ ਹੋਣੀ. It's different. Not everyone's gonna believe in it, but to take that away from a kid, is dangerous. So anyway, I would go through everybody's scriptures. I would hop on Sikhi Wiki. I would read our like a Saki a day. Um, I would find great interest in it. Then it became a really like obsessive interest in it. I really started to like pick through the history. I wanted to like, it was that thing I told you earlier where I felt like I finally found somebody that understood me.
Hmm.
And all that really was is that you and I have that same soul sitting inside, seeking that same satisfaction, which is highest truths, that gyan, Brahm gyan. And once you start focusing on that, and I didn't know it at the time, so now I'm using the language of our things that they teach us that, they teach you that what's happening. They don't hide it, So I would be like, man, all these scriptures that I'm reading of other people's are very, they tell you this, they tell you that, but I was like, man, this is right to the point. I said, this is straight science, and just have like a natural desire to like explore the breathing aspects of it. I started to mess around with like Kundalini yoga and stuff just solely out of the fact that I was like, they talk about it so much. They don't want to talk about it so much. I was like, it's such a secret. I have all these daras, all these people have like ruined millions of lives just teaching yoga and this and that. And you hear these horrible stories. And I was like, yo, it's just plainly mentioned in Guru Granth Sahib Ji. I think 2 or 3 times the word even Kundalini is recorded, and it's something as simple as that, the hours will go up when we're in the Sangat, and hours will go up when we're doing Sat Sangat and doing some. And I was like, yo, so there's, I was like, nothing is hidden. I just have to keep reading here. I'm going to find more. And that's it. If you want to know, then how did Bonnie get further? If we're at that part of the question, it's just jumping around on Sikhi Wiki led me to read that there was something called, a Dasam Granth,
Hmm.
which now I very lovingly and openly call Sri Guru Dasam Granth because it's Guru Sahib's Bani. And I think most things know what I mean when I say that, it's Guru is Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj. That's how you defeat ego. And then the rest, where you're going to become the true Sapai, is you have to do Sangat of all three Granths. And ordered some books, you know, read one thing, read two things, and that was it, man. It was history after that.
So
And props to you for holding your patience and putting together your questions while I'm still blabbering.
no, no, no. The listening to you is what's causing the questions to form.
Yeah.
Um, all of this. So the way I found out about you is obviously through your Instagram, and you're creating all of this content now, and you do it at like kind of a lightning speed. Like I've gone through, I did a little bit of Instagram stalking. I like you were barely posting anything, and then like boom, now you're posting all the time, and it's beautiful artwork, great transcreations, translations. Like it's beautiful work, and you're working at a lightning speed, and it's like where I mean know where that's coming from, Guru Sahib, but like
Yeah.
um
Uh,
what was it that like was it all just Guru Sahib? Like he's like, you gotta start making an Instagram content. Like where did that idea start coming from?
it started where
Like why that medium?
so so Just again, blessings that like to read, so that, like you and I talked about through text, like that might make your journey in anything easier, right? If you just like to read, or blessed to have knowledge to read, parents that
Mhm.
taught you how to read, whatever you want to say it, right? So from reading, I realized that the best way I'm going to start to remember some of these things is if I write about it. I
Mhm.
used to like to write anyway. I've had, and about like whatever topics, I had a fun time writing papers, weird, thing, who does that? But it was just because, and you're going to laugh, it was like I used to just like reading sci-fi novels. And, so big languages, expansive mind thinking. I could, people used to laugh like, yo, if you got a short paper, this kid can turn it into like 5 pages. He's just going to fluff it up. Nothing I'm proud of. I was just good at bullshitting,
Yeah, yeah.
you know? And I was just changing, and I started to not care about what anyone said about what I thought, because where my thought process was starting to come from was Gurmat philosophies. So I would just talk on the topic as like a running story on Instagram. And when I would continue to read Bani, I was lucky to just find things online, and we'll get through that later. As the process of ordering books, I ended up at the commentaries of Bania,
Mhm.
and I realized that a lot of the transliterations that I got access to first were not maybe explaining something how a Nahang Singh would explain, right?
Right,
So for someone listening that's thinking, well, what can a Nahang Singh tell you? They tell you the literally the farthest, the full mystical earth science, and they're not shy about it. Whether you believe it or not, they're gonna tell it like it's supposed to be told. So for me, it's no coincidence that I bow my head a million times over to a real Nahang Singh, because I know that that's his grace. He's let them reach that status. Maybe I was of the other mindset before getting into Sikhi, where I just looked at them as an archaic, you know, devout, just very one-off path. But anyway, that's all of our dreams. We wish we could reach that status, and I wish that for everyone. So, getting to the commentaries, I started talking to a lot of Nahang Singhs, because some of the books came from Nahang Singhs or Nirmala. They were cool bean people. They were straight to the point. I really liked it. I felt like it was a perfect hybrid of a man that could make it in society. You know, cliche words that we've all heard now. They were a sant, they were a sipai, they were a warrior. Some of them were poets. They were all good writers, well spoken, and some had PhDs. I was like, these are the meanings that I guess they don't put together content for, because they don't need to and they don't care to. They got their own seva. So I was like, man, I gotta try to put this in a language that helps me understand it, and then I gotta share it. So I wanted to like make flashcards, because like I didn't know how to read Punjabi and Gurmukhi, and I'm still learning, you know. But I just really made it as a medium to express, and like I should have thought about it more then, but I didn't. I just went with it. I didn't even think twice, like that I'm gonna speak on this topic. Like who the hell am I? But
Someone
I
with a
stopped.
lot of
I
love in
had
your
more
heart.
content up. I pulled it all down because I went back and I wanted to redo it all.
Mm.
But I was just blessed enough to have men around me, and I'll give the credit where it's due, that somebody really kept making me aware. Make sure you always give praise to him.
Yep.
I didn't know that concept. That's not what's taught in now society. It's all me. Make sure you tell people, your name first. Can you shout me out? Can you make sure you tag me? It's like, like it's fine. Everybody deserves their kudos. But when you're speaking on topics that are abstract, that are his, you don't, none of that is your own. He gives it to you, and he segues that to you through your prophet or your guru, whatever faith you're in. And when I got to a few of the commentaries that told me when Maharaji left bachans to things, like study Japji Sahib, speak on it, share your experiences, it was very different from the spiritual Radhaswami, single boat, row your boat by yourself, keep it all to yourself, keep your gems and jewels, make it to the end. I was like, of course. I was like, this is seva. I was like, if I mean it from my heart, I said, first I have to live it out.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the part that's personal. Maybe when we stop recording, I'll tell you like what are things that I changed personally,
Yeah.
for myself first to speak on it and write on it. So that's his grace. He just made me realize that, you can't just touch this topic. If once you touch it, not everyone around me was okay with it. Some people made fun of me. I don't care now. I laugh. It's the greatest blessing in the world. This guy calling you, oh, Sadhu na banji, oh, Baba ji aage,
Mm-hmm.
it sare shuru ho gaye. So my only saving grace was that like I was a gym nut. I was jacked up. So I was like all up about it. I was like, yo, you want to say something? Say something, I'll slap you too. But they knew I wouldn't. I never have in my life, blessed to not even have that experience. So anyway, started putting it together and just didn't care. And then I started doing like political commentary on the side. So I go on and off with waves of that. And that really just came from disappointment in seeing people in public service and finding out that a part of every real man's spiritual progress is uplifting the masses and the
Yep.
people. So another scary thing about Deras is they put politicians and political life over there as a worldly thing,
Right.
right? And they put religion in this box, they put spirituality in a different box. That's not how it works. It's
They've
all
cut up
one
all of
God.
life. They've made it all
It's
separate.
Ikonkar, right? It's
Right. Right.
That's his game. The politics comes from him, like
Yeah.
where does the court system idea come from? That's that we're gonna see that soon. So I was just like, man, this is the perfect faith that gives you the right to be jacked, handsome, in shape, long hair, darty, beard. You can have kore. You can be married. You can shuck dig. You can eat meat if you're going to be in the army. I was like, it's so practical. They're, they're straight to the point. They don't take no nonsense from anybody. And I was like, wow, they got like a balance of like, Tikki Talwar Mangu, which I would say is, Guru Gobind Singh Ji Maharaj, right? One shot and any topic, conversation, question you have. Then you have Guru Nanak Dev Ji, which is like, the biggest hug in the world you'll ever get, rescue you from any sadness. So I was like, yo, it's the perfect balance to create the perfect, Bhagat, which is the Khalsa. And it's had such a bad picture painted on it. I fell in love with, the Khalsa Fateh started it all, So that trigger of not knowing how to say it, then taking so much pride in saying it, then knowing the guru that ordained it, the history behind it, the weight it holds, how many people shed their blood for it. These new age sciences is really scary, They can take that away from you. So you have to engage things on your own. And if you and I know something and have had a one-off experience with one Saki or one story or one Bani, one Pankti, maybe you can engage a Singh in a way that gives you access to a rare gem and jewel set of knowledge that he wouldn't give to anyone else, but because he loves and likes you, you found a way into his heart, he gives it to you. If he's a true Singh, you can give that out to whoever you want. Maybe they're not good, they can't get on a podcast and do it. So I'm glad you're doing this. And I felt like a few people hit me up when I said some things and they got some sense of relief from it. Like, oh, I wanted to say that or share that. And I would be like, why do you even care? Just say it, Just make sure you're not hurting anyone, speak on good things. If you're going to speak on how you think someone's doing something wrong, make sure you say what you think is done the right way, who gave you the right to say that? Where do you get your ideals from? You can't just call people out on things and then not. So I was like, the only person that's teaching me how to do that is Guru Sahib, the Bania. I said it's all here, and I just kept ordering book after book. My girl was gonna kick me out of the house. I'm in trouble all the time, and
Too many
it's
books.
and it's okay, because like I laugh with her. It's like the luck of the draw. She's perfect for me. Not everyone can deal with a person like that. I changed on her fully. She met a completely different person. Maybe the same underlying nature, but whole different end goal. I'm in the process of adorning a completely different, you know, um, Sarup, and that's a full body thing. That's not just the physical aspect of it. Your body changes, things you want to see, speak to, hear, the music I listen to change. What I want to do changed. What I don't care to do changed, And that goes right back into, so why the post? Because I really enjoyed doing it. I felt like it was uh nobody could put any weight on it, if even one thing gets something out of it, to go or sing or singing, to go look up some knowledge. I know the secrets of Bonnie from a first-hand experience, but those are my secrets, and you have your secrets. But the one thing that all of us are going to go through is death, and I knew, like, having these odd experiences of feeling like it was around me, how quickly Gurbani saved, you know? So I felt obligated to share that, and lucky that I went into multiple scriptures at multiple times with an open mind, because I didn't, I wasn't going to let anybody tell me, oh, don't read this, don't read that. Because I know some things get stuck in that, dilemma. Any teak, another Maryada teak me, blah, blah, blah. Really, it doesn't matter what any of us thinks. Just go read everything and then put it together for yourself.
Yeah.
You'll know right away. There's no living person that's going to tell you the perfect version of how it's supposed to be today. So I read in I think Gursoba or Sanipats or maybe Kavi Santokh Singh's I forgot what it's called, but they talk about how right after Maharaj started the Khalsa initiation, the logistics of even getting the Hukamnama out to people far enough about the Sarup change and everything that was happening caused issues starting from that point.
Right.
People not being like, oh, that cannot be what the Guru Sahib said that we have to do, because Guru Sahib got armed, and you just have to read the history to figure it out. You don't need to form any conclusion. Just read it.
I mean, that reminds me of like um Guru Ramdas Ji, right? Like his sons were Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and then probably not remembering his name, right? Preeti Chand, correct?
Okay.
And it's like Guru Arjan Dev Ji, obviously, first Shahidi, and he goes on and he glorifies the Panth, but like Preeti Chand is the great betrayer of the Panth. Like he tried to kill like Guru Har Gobind when he was a baby, and
Baby,
it's
yeah.
like even even the um
The
child
family.
of the guru
Yeah.
himself is like prone
Yeah.
to like being like
Yeah.
corrupt, right? And it's like it's something that we have to deal with, and it's a
Yeah.
reality of this world.
It is, and I just thought that if I was gonna have this medium, you know, everybody's self-help at something. Everybody's talking about something. I just I just want, and I'd already done it, right? I used to be like I told you, I used to talk on food, fitness, this, that. And I was like, yo, really only two things matter, That's like who's running the dirt that you sleep on and eat from, and really like what do you read when you wake up and go to sleep, because
Mhm.
that's like your primary code of of life. And he who denies that listening to this, you're living in a false dream, because all that matters is, what's constantly coming into your head.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that depending on where you live, somebody can decide what's going to go in and out of your head. So that's a problem, you know? That doesn't put politicians all the way over there. It puts them right in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And lucky us, I started to feel really guilty. I was like, man, you're born in New York. I can talk as much nonsense as I want on the gram about whoever I want, and who's going to pull up on me and do what. So I was like trying to find a balance. And I figured, let me just focus on what a lot of the great things that I was reading about did was like, engage. Like, if you read the Sakyas far enough, you always get to the things that you fall in love with. Once you get past the heroics, tall tales, everything, once you're done crying and you're settled in somewhere and you look into their teachings, you always just find out like how strict they were in their nitnam, or which bani they were attached to, which one they read multiple times, leaned on onali boliki si, and it's like it's that big secret, it's just it matters what you're constantly saying. It that's when I started to be like, nam japana. I said it's like a master key. I was like, it must do something, but it must take time. I was like, oh, that means effort. Oh, you have to do it yourself, and it started to, and I was like, the guilt wouldn't stop that I was so lucky to be in the situation that I was and realizing what I had. I couldn't grow my case long enough. I couldn't make posts quick enough. I couldn't do anything faster than just continue to take his name in the moment,
Wow.
every moment. So I just started to lean on that, and the rest is hard to talk about because I'm not going to claim that I'm doing anything, but he makes you do it,
Yeah.
He lets you do it, As soon as you accept that and you realize that, then just keep begging him, like, please let me keep doing this, don't take this away from me. It's a fight. Maya comes and tests you all the time, Her goal is to make sure that, that you stay here, that you get grounded in the moment and have a false sense of reality that this is all going to stay here, not this blanket, not you, not me, not those headphones, it's all got to go. So you got to figure out how you're going to. I always say to my boys, the longest thing that you and I are ever going to experience is death, right? That's like your infinite state. So it makes no sense to not find a manuscript to navigate yourself through infinity,
Yeah.
And that's religion, that's what it should be. That's what it is. And unfortunately, people get in the way of you getting to your manuscripts. And everybody out there just needs to go read, man. They just need to grab. They need to grab Bonnie, and there's ways to read it, right? So I'm telling you all this just from English transliterations, and then bouncing back to the words. Using the Mahan Kosh came in later. So now when I like try to make posts, I'll put, so let's just say I'm doing a party on Japji Sahib, I'll have like 5 commentaries open in front of me, in one format. I look at everybody's. I have a massive tikka that by Kamalpreet Singh of Pradesi Nirma made. Sikhism in Snippets is their page.
Okay.
So there's a new publication. It's with them, Basics of Sikhi. It's like 1,000+ pages. It's huge. It's right here. I'll send you. I'm sure you've seen it because a lot of things are reposting it. So I go through all of them. I gather as many perspectives and definitions as I can. Then I'll use the Mahan Kosh, which I'm sure but for anyone listening, is a dictionary that like Khan Singh Nabha spent like 30 years, or I think 13 or 30 years putting together, like endless amount of work. And it's on the gram, it's on the internet, you can just put in a word and then see all the possible definitions. So then I do that, and then I put it together. I try to share my experience of, how I interpret it. And And I always try to run it by Singhs, you know. One day I'll show up at your doorstep and say, "What do you think? How do you feel?" You know, I prefer to run it by Nahang Singhs, you know. Always, I that's just the way I lean, and that's it, man. And it took over my life, you know. It definitely. I'm happy to admit that it can become a selfish thing too, because and you'll know. I hope everybody knows that one day there's a joy that comes from engaging Gurbani. You know, there's a peace. Nobody looking anywhere can tell you that you're doing anything wrong in that moment. You could be the
Right.
biggest sinner in the world. You could be upside down, loser, billionaire, you name it. But that moment is special, you know? So when you read stuff like every single Devi, Devta, demon, angel has their eye, you know, above you on anything that starts to read, you know, Siri Japji Sahib, you know, that's true. That's not up for discussion. You know, the whole world slows down because there are secrets in that. Ki pata kinni wari loki janam leange, you know, to come back to find out that you can propagate Vaheguru on the way out, you know, and the Singh saints have been singing about it for what now? 550 years we're going to be celebrating, you
Yeah.
know, and it's got to be talked about. I thought because I was a Mona that people would listen more, you know, like look at this crazy motherfucker, you know, he's like, and I've had that interactions. People want to know, like, yo, why, you know, what
Yeah.
happened, and that's it. I just wanted to make sure that I felt like I could draw people's attention, and I wanted to use it in a good way. You know, I was done with all that. I didn't care about, you know, I don't want to make a post about myself. I don't need a selfie here and there. You know, it was already becoming my general nature. Hated pictures, this and that. You don't want to look at yourself, if you know what I mean. Once you get into Sikhi, you know, you just want to keep moving. You want to get to Guru Sahib, and that's it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter, you know. So it was the perfect platform to do it. And your friend circles change, people change. It's protection, man. People leave you alone. First of
Yeah.
all, you might think you're losing friends. Really, you're just being protected. You know, Bonnie repels, you know, anyone that's not doesn't want to hear it. And I know that because I know how much it used to repel me, you know, from places or people that engaged in it. Because I was not a good person. Still
Mm-hmm.
am not trying to be better, but um it's protection 24/7, and that takes multiple experiences, you know, to arrive at.
Right on. I think that's probably a good place to pause it. This timer's going to come up again in another 5 minutes or so. So
Yeah.
um, I'll stop the recording, but we'll say a couple of more things before we get off.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm glad we did this. I'm sweating over here.